France's leading economic diplomacy arm, the Movement of Enterprises of France, will visit Zimbabwe in October. This is after extensive discussions with Vice President Dr. Constantino Chiwenga, who highlighted the significant investment opportunities in the country. Chiwenga attended a reception hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron at the presidential palace this week. What informed this decision by the Zimbabwean government when many Africans are calling for France to exit the continent and stop meddling in Africa's minerals, business ties and politics? Is this a noble move? Mr. Stevenson Dhlamini, economic analyst and lecturer at NUST, Department of Banking and Economic Sciences, joins us now. Stephen, a very good afternoon. Appreciate your time. What immediate economic impacts?
Good afternoon, thank you for having me.
Let's talk about I want to start off with the lifting of the EU sanctions, which is something that the Vice President, Dr. Chiwenga, spoke to in those engagements in France. What has the progress been since the lifting of the EU sanctions?
So far, after following the lifting of the sanctions, I think there have been diplomatic efforts to try and establish business ties with the European Union. The banking sector, especially that had been grossly affected by the sanctions, really received a huge relief, which means that their international transactions now can occur at a pace that is better than what they were experiencing before. So that reprieve to the banking sector has been a very welcome move. And now I believe that the government is pressed with the agenda of trying to re-establish ties with the European countries.
Well, you talk about re-establishment of ties, but there also seems to be a fresh look if the engagement with that arm of development in France is anything to go by. Not typical of most southern African countries to be engaging with France when you look at particularly what's happening in the West, where West African nations are actually cutting ties with Paris.
Well, yes, but we need to appreciate that the relations between France and Zimbabwe date way back. I recall when we were growing up, we used to have a lot of vehicles of the Peugeot model, signaling that there was significant trade. Although current trade is modest, the recent efforts to engage with France on developmental projects is also reflective of the fact that Zimbabwe owes $3.1 billion to France under the Paris Club. So that shows that there's been some element of relations between the two countries. More than 30 companies, French companies, are currently operating in Zimbabwe. But however, as you point out, that there's been a general sentiment in the Western countries to try and have a French exit because of the neo-colonial effects that France has had. They believe that France has been exploiting their mineral resources without them gaining much. We are hopeful that the structure of the relations that are going to be established between Zimbabwe and France are going to ensure that the general populace also benefits from these deals that are going to be signed. Because it's very important that when we engage in such bilateral relations, we need to ensure that also the locals gain from such interactions.
Now, how easy is it to have a win-win situation when Zimbabwe owes the French $3.1 billion?
Currently, I would say the relations are quite skewed in favor of France. Given the nature of our debt relations, I would say the nature of the deals are going to favor France more than our own country, especially in the area of mining. Perhaps in the area of infrastructure and technological transfers, we may stand to benefit from these interrelations. But as it stands, it is most likely to be skewed towards France benefiting more than what we are potentially going to benefit from as a country.
Stephen, what specific sectors do you think hold the most potential for French investment in Zimbabwe?
Well, I believe that the agricultural sector does host potential, and the mining sector, and perhaps the hospitality and the digital economy could host potential benefits for the French industry, especially when it comes to agriculture. The agro-processing industry holds potential for the French investors in our country. And in terms of minerals processing, there's still vast potential that the companies can tap into, as well as the pharmaceutical industry, which still possesses a great potential for improvement if it is especially transformed with technological advancements that we can benefit from through sharing with the French.
Now, we've talked about Zimbabwe's expectations from the French. Well, the French in MEDEF delegation are visiting Zimbabwe in October. What are they likely to be looking for when they touch down in Harare?
Perhaps I think your first point of call, they're going to look for potential investment areas in the mining, especially in the lithium mining industry. They are likely to be more interested in that. It's also in the processing of those minerals, given that the government is trying to make inroads into processing of minerals instead of exporting raw commodities. Perhaps I believe they will look at potentials in that mining value chain, as well as in the agricultural value chain. They are going to exploit potential opportunities for processing agricultural products. And yeah, I think these are the two main sectors that they are going to focus on, and perhaps also the energy sector. They are going to look into ways of transforming the energy sector consistent with green revolution.
Stephen, before we close, I want to touch a little bit on the SADC Industrialization Week, which is currently, in fact, which starts in Harare tomorrow. Several countries from the African continent are descending on Harare, as are other countries. What are the expectations or might be key deliverables that Harare is hoping to achieve from engagement over the next week?
Perhaps I think what is prominent, given the fact that our country is currently involved in trying to reindustrialize our economy, I believe that the SADC summit, whose theme also touches on promoting economic growth through industrialization, will be very useful to our country as they share strategies on how to industrialize, especially when it comes to rural industrialization. I believe as a country, we stand to learn a lot from the experiences of those that have gone before us, those that have managed to apply the industrialization policies with some degree of success. So I believe as a country, we are hoping to share knowledge and strategies on industrialization and how we can improve our economies, moving our economies away from being resource-based into industrialized, value-adding economies.